Hey, how are you doing today?
I am doing great, sir. Uh, I am fine. What about you?
I'm doing excellently. Thank you for. So, anything interesting unfolded today, Vijay? Anything out of the ordinary happened that you would like to
Um,
share? Yeah, tell me.
no, I think I told you earlier. We have 3 days school off due to
Oh,
the local fair and local interview to the local DT. So it's one of today one of them. So I didn't get go to school. I talked a lot today. I practiced a lot with my co-learners and I had a session with a YouTuber, famous YouTuber.
okay, wonderful.
We discussed Indian education system, sir, about and some no they he is trying to blame the teacher and management in the private sector. So
Sure.
I simply opposed him. So not like that. We are teachers are because being a teacher, it's my responsibility to express my point of view in front of the common people.
Sure.
So sometimes they take a teacher should do and that and teacher pressurize for getting good marks and they are labeling the student name of the studious and they are the moderate student, they are the below of the level student. So we are not doing these kind of the things.
Mm,
We are not the policy maker. We don't have decided any syllabus. So just I simply ask him.
mm.
mm, no, I want to tell you a incident.
Sure.
Earlier, one day we discussed about our school. So one day, our education minister, present education minister, issued a order. Every student will plant 15 trees.
Okay.
So
Every student will plant 50. That's a very lofty ambition, I have to say. That's a
yeah,
unreasonable. Yeah.
unreasonable. Yes, unreasonable. And so someone asked, raised the question that time. So who will appoint him as a education minister? So then suddenly I raised question: Who will elect him as a member of the legislative? Tell
Mm,
me, give me the answer first.
mm,
So that no, it is the responsibility of the common people. We elected him. That
mm,
is why he appointed as education minister.
mm.
So after we conclude our session, as is the king, so are the subjects. If we Indians are and no teachers, you can include me as a citizen. We are responsible. What we are facing now.
Mm. That's true. The predicament that we find ourselves in is like at least partially created by our own accord, right? We have the political will. Somehow we have been so backward and so uninitiated to the political process that we still determine our choices because of petty considerations like caste, religion, and these sort of things, and local influence and things like that. Oh, I know this person. He has 7 petrol pumps in my area, so he's no, he's a very liable candidate to become
Hmm.
a parliamentarian. Right? How
Hmm.
does that qualify him? Okay, he has constructed an empire for himself and he has earned a lot of money. That does not prove that he is a viable alternative for governance in the local politics, right? But most people think accordingly. Even today, most of the votes cast in India are done because of caste considerations or religious considerations. We are still fighting over what Akbar
Hmm.
did and what Babur did, and we are not seeing what our present government is doing currently. The kind
It's
of.
not their fault that it's a not government fault. If government try to reform something, we society not ready to accept. We people are not ready to accept even reforms. When the British rule, that times we Indian against them because they ban some social evil, dowry, and no sati pratha, we can say. So we opposed, and we are the same Indian. We are living in the same mentality. So how can they reform our society?
Yeah, that's definitely true. Uh,
Mm.
I think Socrates said that democracy only works when the intelligentsia is spread out evenly in the populace. So
Mm.
the population has to be well educated in order for. I think about Saudi Arabia, for example. Saudi Arabia has never had democracy.
Mm.
Since it was incepted as a modern nation, it has never had democracy of any kind. It has always been ruled in the ancient fashion. For example, like monarchy still prevails over there.
Monarchy, yes.
So, and you see the kind of development that they have created around themselves in the past 70 or 80 years, right?
Mm.
1930, if you see a photograph of Dubai, it will be unrecognizable because it's like a shanty town. You have
Mm.
it's like slums and hovels, hutments all spread around the sea. That was
Mm.
Dubai around 100 years ago. But look at Dubai now; it is comparable to one of the most advanced Western countries It gives
Yes,
them a run for their money. But
mm,
how was it able to do that despite any democratic values, despite any democratic institutions? So kind of Socrates' words kind of ring true with me.
yeah. We can say the vindication of the words of the Socrates. No,
Definitely,
and
yes.
we have another vindication of the China, sir. China.
China is another example. Yes, we criticize China a lot. Even I criticize China a lot because of the personal liberties that people are not able to enjoy there today. It's a police state, more or less. It's a surveillance state through and through. Every activity of every citizen is monitored heavily by the establishment, and but yet, the kind of independence, the kind of self-reliance
Yeah.
that China has created, the boost that has happened to its economy, it is unparalleled. And again, it was on an equivalent, it was on a commensurate footing with India,
Mm.
around 1950s when India was taking off, and when the modern Chinese nation was also taking off as a pseudo-democratic establishment, right? It
Might
tries
be
to
they
create
are,
a,
might be they are taking the pseudo democracy, sir, but we should look at their independency and their science and technology, and there is a no need to look at a Western culture. No, they
yeah.
have their own system. It is a big, no big deal. It matters.
That's true. That's true. I still have to clarify that I do have an attachment to democratic values. I still feel at least the power should belong to the people, because it's a when it comes to monarchy, when it comes to autocracy, yes, there have been some some examples. There have been some epitomes, as example. But then there have been stories which are absolute abject failures as well, right? So
Mm.
it's like a coin toss. It's like a gamble. Without the people having a voice in the political process, it's more or less, it's a what do you call, a wager, basically, right? You are anything can happen. If you have a benevolent dictator, then he might usher in an era of prosperity for all. But if you have a corrupt leader like the Libyan autocrat, for example, Muammar Gaddafi, or if you have somebody like Saddam Hussein, like in Iraq, right? So things can go downhill pretty soon also, right?
Yes.
So I'm but yes, it does give me misgivings. It does give me food for thought. It does initiate some reservations inside of me that maybe India. And when I hear the same sentiment being resonated in and being reverberated by some people in my family, for example, my father also says sometimes that India should not be a democracy. But what he means is that Modi should have complete power, like he should have unchecked, unremitted authority over all parts of
No,
the
no, sir, we are not talking about only Modi. I am a great admirer of the Srimati Indira Gandhi. So she had that time a great power, and it's an exceptional leader in all over world.
Definitely, yeah.
So
She was a force to be reckoned with. But again, she also did some sketchy things during the emergency period, for example. That was completely unconstitutional. It has been hailed. I have been a law student, so I've had like chapters dedicated to that phase of Indian history taught to me by various professors. And the common line of agreement that I find among all experts is that it was grossly unconstitutional, and it was a power garnering move, basically eliminating the competition and consolidating power for herself. So a lot of dictatorial tendencies also she tried to something absolutely reprehensible that I cannot condone in any at any degree whatsoever is the forced sterilization of a lot of Muslims that happened back then in India, especially coming from underprivileged communities. So these are some things that I like absolutely abhor about.
don't you think, sir, sometimes it's the need, it's crying need to consolidate the power, and
Maybe you might be right. Again, you can go ahead, you can complete your point. Even if I don't agree with you, you have.
I am not the person who are very opinionated, but I just want to ask you, sometimes I feel, if we want to set all system, if we want to the row ducks all in the row, so we have to. It's required to consolidate the power and usurp the whole power.
The pronunciation for that word is usurp.
Usurp.
Usurp power. Okay.
Usurp. Mm.
Yeah. So maybe you are right. I could be wrong on this point, but again, I have a penchant. I have a soft spot for democratic values. At least I I'm in awe of the vision that Ambedkar had for India, for example, which was betrayed. Definitely, we could not make the India that he had envisioned. The following generation of leaders and policymakers were not in alignment with his vision, right? And they had their own selfish interests. They had their own ulterior motives. They wanted to fill their own pockets without actually thinking about the welfare of the nation as a whole. And that has really debilitated us. The foundation, it has eaten away at the foundation. Even during Indira Gandhi's period also, like if her rule had brought prosperity, unparalleled prosperity. I could have agreed, I could have said maybe the ends justify the means, right? You hear this very often. The ends
mm,
justify the means. If the result is there, then okay, it does not really matter how did you get there, what mannerisms you took, what method you applied, right? But during her time also, like the international value of the rupee fell drastically. Like it was, I think 1 rupee, it was something like 10 rupees or 15 rupees for a dollar, and it became
mm.
50 rupees by the end of her term. So
Five-fold multiply.
yeah, and so the inflation, there was rampant inflation going on, and the purchasing power of the Indian rupee went down significantly. There were some headway that was made in national defense, for example. I think during her reign itself, the atomic bomb was tested, and that was a great power move that came under her tutelage, that came under her supervision. So that made India stronger. So there were some good policy decisions made also that benefited India in the long run. But all in all, what little I know about her rule, I would not want to see her in power again. I would not want to see that. But again, she was also an entitled millionaire. You have to remember that, right? She was not a person of the common masses. If you really want
Mm,
a person, who can change things, he has to hail from very humble backgrounds. Somebody who can really understand the plight of the poor, and the misery that the common folk suffer on a regular basis. And he needs to be empathetic enough to want to do something about it by whatever capacity he he wields. And that has never been true of the Gandhi family. So I'm kind of in opposition to that also. Like she was also entitled. She used to think, okay, my father was the first prime minister of India, so I'm entitled to this prime ministership also. So I don't
But
want a candidate like that. Yeah.
one place I have read something about the Bhagavad Gita. In Bhagavad Gita, the Lord Krishna says, just focus on your karma. There is no need to consider about the consequences and repercussions. But Arjun try to emphasize on the result and repercussion. What will happen after the post carnation, and how can I face no all kind of the things. And this quotation, focus on your karma, use the Oppenheimer, the team leader of atom bombs during the Second
Yeah.
World War.
The Manhattan
So,
Project.
hmm, so he quote, I just pay attention my karma that time. I never paid attention what will happen, no, and what is the result we will face. And after that, he, I think the endorse I should not do and this that, because it's a no, we can say त्रासदी को क्या कहेंगे sir English में, it is a word, no,
Tragedy, I think
not
so.
tragedy, word tragedy, no, and I never imagine these kind of the things. So now I would say that time Indira Gandhi and Ambedkar and in present time our honorable prime minister, what they are doing according to their karma, I think in
Uh,
a demand I think it's a demand of situation, and in these circumstances they have to do just let's take example of the Pahalgam attack, and India became so aggressive, and he retreat, it's the
reiterate,
correct hmm,
reiterated, yeah, reiterated.
reiterated in that the manner, I think the word, not expecting from no the way we retreated, the way we show our aggressions.
Mhm.
So
I
I
think,
think
yeah, go ahead, please. Complete your chain of thought. Yeah.
it's a demand of, it was the demand of time, and just they did their duty.
For sure. So yeah, there have been some things that no, nobody. The world is not black and white, right? Nobody is either a saint or a devil. Every
Mm,
person nowadays, for example, it has become commonplace to blame Gandhi for a lot of the ills that have befallen the Indian state in general, right? And there are a lot of things that were not well known back then about his own personality, which has come to light in the consecutive years, in the following years, and now those points are used as criticism, as elements to disparage his reputation and to demean his contribution to the Indian political system. But if you look
mm,
at the whole picture, right, a lot of, for example, I think this question was asked in a podcast to Khan sir, somebody I really admire and I really revere. Right? I
mm,
think he's a very knowledgeable person and he has the right perspective on a lot of burning social issues. And he said, again, you have to consider him a person. Only when, this happens only when you consider the person to be a god. We are
mm,
taught, for example, that mothers, our parents should be treated as gods, right? I starkly disagree with that notion, because what happens when you consider a person god, you think that he cannot make a mistake. That is an assumption that you create in your mind. But we are all people, and it is
mm,
human to err, which means very
mm,
common saying, right? It is human to err, which means that if you are a human being, you will make mistakes. It is inherently decoded in you that you will make some judgment calls that will not be fruitful, that will lead to undesirable results, right? So you have to look at the whole picture. There were a lot of good things about Gandhi. Yes, there were some things that were despicable also, but you have to take everything in stride. And same applies to parents also. If your parents did not agree with your passion, for example, did not provide you the right environment to bloom into the kind of professional that you wanted to be, if you consider them gods, if you consider them perfect creatures of the creation, you might not be able to forgive them for that lack of insight, or for that lack of foresight, maybe at that point in your career where you were completely dependent on them. But if you understand that these were also the simple people who had no experience with child rearing, they were also like simply bumbling into situations and trying their best to basically
Yes.
overcome the challenges that they were encountering. So you can understand, okay, they made mistakes, they did whatever they thought was the right thing to do. Maybe they did
Yes. Yes.
not know any better, right? So you have to think about all of these different factors. But in Indian politics, especially, the nuances get blurred. People like finger pointing. People want to direct their ire and their wrath at one individual. So Jawaharlal Nehru did this, Gandhi
Yes.
did
Yes.
this, and because of that, this has happened. It's easy to do that. It's difficult to look at all of the contributing factors.
Mm.
Yeah.
And maybe when we were the Gandhi, and I were Gandhi, might be I would be done these kind of the things.
I'm sorry. Can you repeat that? I don't think I followed it.
Um, let's suppose I were Gandhi in that situation, so I would be
Mhm.
do this kind of the things. So
So
possibility for me,
you place yourself in his shoes, right? You might not have been able to do even that much that he accomplished. But he was a brilliant human being. That much cannot be obfuscated. That cannot be denied, I think, in my opinion. He was a person who looked like a beggar, but who spoke like an English judge. He had that command over the English language. Kind of everybody was stunned by his personality. He stayed with his roots, right? He did not let. I don't think he lived a life of opulence. Whenever my father also like vehemently opposes Gandhi and criticizes him very often, so I ask him, like, show me one political leader today who lives his normal life like Gandhi used to. Gandhi used to stay in a mud hut. He used to stay in an ashram. Okay, there were some people who were fanning him around him, but he used to lay on the floor. He did not have opulent furniture. He did not travel in the first class. He did not travel in luxury cars. He did not have a very profligate lifestyle, which what we can see today happening rampantly all over. Right? Any person who has a little bit of power, they send. I remember when in Bihar, right? I read a chapter about the indigo plantations in Champaran. So when Gandhi came here, for example, he was a budding star in the Indian political system. And when he came here, after he had settled the dispute of the indigo plantations with the big landlords, the English landlords who actually controlled the territory on which the farming was done, after he had settled all of that, compensation had been reached, which was again a miraculous unfolding of the events and a remarkable conclusion to the complicated problem that he had gotten himself into. After that, he did not go back. He stayed here. He saw that there was so much backwardness in these villages. There was,
Stable condition of the people of Champarans, and sanitary problems and health issues, and literacy rate is very low.
yeah,
And
and he called his wife, right, from
mm,
Sevagram. He called his son from Sevagram. His son could have, like today's politicians, most of their sons and daughters, they head multinational companies, or they go and settle in the Western countries. They have dual citizenship. Nothing like that. He was working on the ground, right? He was working on in the roots, and he had his family working along with him, staying there. Now there were no five-star hotels in Champaran. I'm sure he had to stay at any random person's home,
in
living.
that chapter, it is to mention when they visited the Rajendra Prasad's house, so they treated as a simple human and
Exactly. Yeah.
untouchable.
Like
And they
like
sit down on
untouchable.
ground. Mm.
True, exactly. So yeah, he faced caste discrimination, although he was not an untouchable, right? And
Yes.
he traveled like that, and he tried to stay as humble, as modest as possible throughout his life. Yes, he made some mistakes. Yes, he might have, his policy might have been misguided at times. Maybe that was not the right way to go about. Maybe he could have had the wrong notion, but whatever conviction he had it strongly. It occupied him. It possessed him entirely, and he was ready to stake his life. He was ready to stake his political career at all times. Whenever he thought that the whatever principle that he was trying to accomplish or follow, that was in line with his vision and with his value system. That
Yes.
kind of earnestness and that kind of sincerity and authenticity is completely absent today in
Yes.
the political system entirely, from one end of the spectrum to other. So
Mhm.
again, I don't think, people should try and look at the nuances a little bit. They should
Yes,
try and
yes.
see all of the factors before making up their mind and blaming some one person. You have roads